In this video we go from Ilovik all the way down to an anchorage called Veli Rat. There's a couple of storms coming, and Veli Rat is what I consider one of the safest anchorages I've ever stopped at in Croatia. And here's why. If you zoom into Veli Rat, this is the entryway over here. So we're sailing in over here, and then there's a very, very narrow gap until you get into Veli Rat. This entire bay over here is very shallow. It's about 3 meters deep at its deepest point. Entryway is very shallow and very narrow. And it's not very big, so the distance, if we look at it in kilometers, to each of the edges is very small. In nautical miles, it's almost nothing, less than 0.2 of a mile. And there's hills surrounding it over here. So here there's small hills. You can see the altitudes over there, 20, 30 meters or so. Over here, there's much bigger hills. Here we're looking at 70 or 80 meters. And on this side, we've got hills as well, 20 meters. So you're basically in a very shallow bay with a very good mud holding, and you're almost completely surrounded by hills and by trees, which break the wind down quite a lot. It's only this direction over here where you could have some fetch if the wind comes in from very strongly from the northwest. You've potentially got 1.6 miles of fetch. Usually in Croatia, the wind to worry about is the Bora, which comes from the northeast in this direction. So you've got these two sets of hills and trees which break it down, and that's why I anchored over here for a lot of our stay. So if you're looking for a very safe anchorage and you're in Dalmatia, I can highly recommend it. There's some beautiful, beautiful beaches over here. This one over here is much more beautiful than you can expect. It's got a little sunken ship over there you can swim over, and then there's a town on each side, the town of Veli Rat and Veronik. Both of them have got shops that are open, and yeah, just a very pleasant day to be. And if you take your dinghy out, this whole lagoon over here is really, really pretty. And you've got the old lighthouse over here, which I didn't get to see on this trip, unfortunately, but it's apparently worth seeing. And we have left Ilovik. It's now, what is the time? Almost 11. There's a warning of a potential strong northwest, 35 to 40 knots, so I haven't put the mainsail up. I've only got the foresail up just in case I need to bring it down quickly. And tonight is a very strong Bora, again, also 35 to 40 knots. So we're going for an anchorage called Veli Rat, which is 23 nautical miles away, and it's protected on all sides and nice and shallow, so if we lay a lot of chain we should be good over there. And that's today. How are things going, Candice? We spent a bit of time this morning making some water and doing some laundry, which hopefully wouldn't have been a mistake. Let's see what happens with it. It's only on the Croatian weather that they're predicting those occasional gusts. The rest of the weather says it will be fine until late afternoon. And past a small island that has just a lighthouse on it. I imagine it's automated, but yeah, at some point somebody used to live there. I wonder why I didn't plant any trees. Would you plant trees if you lived on a bare island with your little lighthouse? I suppose that interferes with your rum drinking time. So just the Genoa out still. Wind coming from behind, it's 7 knots, and we're doing about 5 knots of speed, 5.2, which I'm pretty happy with. 14 nautical miles to go, so under 3 hours. And we're going past a couple of islands. They look quite interesting, uninhabited. So many of the islands here seem uninhabited. And a couple of other boats out on the water. So far, none of those big gusts, but with the wind coming from directly behind, I can't use my mainsail anyway. It should just be jibing all the time. In theory, if I had put up one of my spinnakers or knew what they were and how to put them up, those would work quite nicely at the moment. But I need to go and practice that. I need to do it on a day when there's no wind. But I would first like to get used to my mainsail and my Genoa, so I know them very well before I start playing with anything else. YouTube mountainsailing. I've only got 1000 watts going into the motors. I'm doing 5.2, 5.3 knots just with my Genoa out, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. A lot of people complain that the Med has got too much wind, too little wind, but it seems to be that if you're motor sailing, it's almost the perfect place to be. I think the Med was made for solar electric boats. Back to motoring again. The wind was coming from directly behind, so we couldn't use the foresail, which was just flapping. 1000 watts in each motor, and I'm still going over 5 knots, which is quite nice. We're going past a couple of different islands, and we have about 2.5 hours to go. There's a beautiful beach over there, and in pictures looks like very crystal clear blue water. In this wind direction would be a terrible place to anchor, but it looks like it'd be a really good place to swim another time. Apparently the houses there are all holiday homes for the locals, but it's otherwise a completely uninhabited island. It's called Skada. Increased power to 2100, nearly 2200 watts, and we're now doing 5.5 knots, which is brilliant, I think. We've got a wind coming from the side at 9 knots. We could be sailing now, but because we're going to turn right any minute now, the wind would be directly behind us again, so we're not going to do that. We'll just keep motoring along. The batteries are nice and full, and we'll keep doing a good speed. So we're going through quite a narrow strait of here, between Skada on the right and Ist on the left, and it looks like it's a route a lot of boats do take, so I'm going to have to avoid all the sailboats. We're going directly downwind. It's coming from 180 degrees behind us, so if I had the spinnaker up and running I could stick that up, but we're motoring probably at the same speed we'd be going with the spinnaker, so we might as well save our sails and motor. The sun has charged the batteries, they're full, and I'm not draining them at the moment, they're staying full, so yeah, we'll keep motoring at 5 to 5.2, 5.3 knots or so. Nice day. Going past another catamaran. I think it's a Fontaine Peugeot, I'm not sure how big it is. They've got their mainsail out, but I suspect they're going into wind. They're motoring and not sailing, just like I'm going directly downwind. I could put a spinnaker out, but I don't. And there's, what does it say on the back? Malibran. Not sure what Malibran is, but they're flying a Malibran flag on the back. So amazingly, even though we're only about 100 meters offshore, it's some of the deepest water we've actually ever been in. It's measuring at 71 meters, and we are surrounded by little islands everywhere. And the most interesting one is this one on the right here, which that's very odd. But if I zoom in, there's actually people on it. And
sorry, there's a boat coming.
There's a boat going away from us. It looks like you could take a very small boat there. There's a little bay or a beach, but I mean there is nothing on it. It's a giant, very interesting rock, but a giant rock. And a couple of people. Looks a bit like a submarine. So we're doing 2100 watts at the moment, 5.6 knots, and there's a sailboat up ahead. The wind at the moment is 10 knots, coming from 136 degrees, so we could be sailing. But because we're motoring so well and the sun is powering us well, I think we'll actually be motoring faster than that sailboat. I suspect we'll be overtaking them soon. A couple of big catamarans going past. That looks like a lagoon. In fact, they both look like lagoons. There's one there and there's one there. Motoring straight into wind, as catamarans typically have to do. Somebody was joking online the other day and said the MED stands for motoring every day, but when your motoring power comes from the sun, you might as well motor. And we finally overtook them, so even on a day like this with good crosswind, there's more power from the sun than there is from the wind. What do we got? We're 8 knots at 140 degrees. So this boat and I are on a similar course. They should stay out of my way. They should either turn right to go behind me or keep turning left, which is what I suspect they're going to do as they pass this island. But yeah, the wind is blowing quite well now. 9 knots, 135 degrees. I could have my mainsail out and really be flying. I've got my foresail out and I'm motor sailing at 6 knots, which is very fast for us. And this boat, I assume, is just sailing, so let's see what happens. And we seem to be winning this race as well, so we're doing really well. At the moment, I'm very glad I've actually decided to spend all that money to keep the sails, because the combination of sails and electric motors seems to be a real winner. I've got my Genoa out and 1,500 watts on the motors, which is exactly what the sun is. Well, the sun is putting in about 1,800 or so, so we're charging slowly, well, nearly full. And we're basically beating every boat that was going the same direction as us today, so doing pretty well. And there's the other boat, so we are pulling away from them slowly, but I now have my Genoa out as well. So Genoa plus electric motor on the sun seems to be doing better than a monohull sailboat that's got their Genoa and mainsail out. It is quite bumpy over here. The wind has been blowing fairly strong northwesterly all day, and you know, in the distance is Italy eventually. So as I can see now that we are out of the island, it's quite rock and roll. And this is how things sound when we are motor sailing at 6 knots. So the two loudest noises are the waves crashing against the side of the hull, and the squeak on the autopilot, which is a little bit annoying, but it's a very nice quiet sailing. We're doing 6 knots here, so we really are making good progress. And we're just going to go around that green channel marker, and then we're going to turn into the lagoon of Veli Rat. There's a lot of sailboats hiding from this strong northwest at the moment. Plenty of them in that anchorage. We're going to the inner anchorage because I know from tonight it switches from a west-northwest to a bora northeasterly, and inside the main harbour at least you're very well protected, at least from all directions, and that's what I want for tonight. It's been a bumpy ride, not the most fun. Fortunately the waves were behind us, so it wasn't terrible, but it was quite rolly most of the time. So apparently this entryway is marked by 2 buoys. I can't see them. It's very narrow. The catamaran has to squeeze in, and it's very shallow as well, just to make it even more fun. So I'm not going to film any more of this, but I'll hopefully get the drone up later and get to see where those narrow and shallow bits are from there. Well, the Veli Rat anchorage isn't the prettiest one. A very short walk gets you to this beautiful bay, and if you're willing to do a little bit of a longer walk, there's a little better bay on the other side of the headland, and that's this one over here. When you look at it on the map, let me see if I can post a picture, it's incredibly blue clear water.